Alright, welcome to the 1.4 edition of Comet Algebra for Algebra 2 called Solving Equations. What can I say about solving equations? Remember everything you ever learned about it because you're going to use all of it, all your skills, and you have to remember them all. I cannot emphasize how important these skills are. So you need to remember when you're looking at 5x plus 12, you do the opposite of that to both sides. That's why we call it the undoing method, because we're constantly undoing the equation to solve for the variable. So first we subtracted 12 from both sides, and then we get a negative 30. Here we are multiplying by 5, so we do the opposite of that and divide by 5. And we end up with x equals negative 6. I hope you're saying, oh wow, that's boring, I so got that. This next example, we're going to combine two skills. First, we're going to use our distribution property, and then we're going to do the undoing method. So just remembering your distribution, this negative 3 has to be multiplied by both terms inside the parentheses. Negative 3x minus 6. Likewise here with the 4. So we end up with 4x plus 72, but then we have this minus 1 here, so I guess the step we need to insert here is the combining like terms. 72 and negative 1 are both numbers, so they are like terms, plus 71. So now we want to add a 6 to both sides and subtract a 4x from both sides. So I'm kind of doing two steps in one here. So I end up with negative 7x equals 77. And then the last step is to divide both sides by this negative 7. And we get x equals negative 11. So like I said, I hope you're looking at this as totally boring. I got that, ready for something more challenging. So let's look at some literal equations. A literal equation is just a term that means you have mostly letters in it, and you are told to solve for one of the letters. So in this example 3, we're told to solve for h. So you always want to come over here and identify which letter we're trying to solve for so we know which one we're trying to get alone. And then you treat the other letters with the undoing method the same way you'd treat them as if they were numbers. For instance, if this was a plus 10 over here, we would just subtract a 10 from both sides. In case you can't read my lovely handwriting, this says b equals 2l plus 2w in parentheses times height, or h, plus 2lw. So the first thing I want to do is subtract a 2lw from both sides. Now please keep in mind you can only combine like terms, so most of these you can't combine them. So we simply need to write this as b minus 2lw, and then write what we have left here. That equals 2l plus 2w in parentheses times h. And once again, we're keeping track of what we are solving for. We want to get this h alone. So if this was a number, if this whole big parentheses was a number like 7, if this was 7h, you would divide both sides by 7. So you treat this the same way and simply divide by 2l plus 2w. If you divide one side, you must divide the other. And even though it looks messy, that's your answer because these cancel. And so we have h alone. H does equal the quantity b plus 2lw all over the quantity 2l plus 2w. So this, like I said, it's kind of ugly, but that is your final answer. Alright, in this last example, same exact literal equation, except this time we're solving for something different. We're going to solve this for L. So we have a little more of a challenge here. In solving for L, I notice that I have 1 here and 1 here. So the problem is when this L is buried inside this parentheses, we have to get it out so we can work with it. So let's take this H and let's do distribution to both of these terms, and in that way we'll be getting rid of the parentheses, bringing the L out of there. So now I have 2L capital H plus 2W capital H plus 2LW. So I'm getting closer. I still have an L in this term and an L in this term. And because we want to get the L's together and keep them on one side of the equation, I don't want to subtract one of those from both sides. But this, however, I want to get that to the other side. So I'm going to subtract both sides by 2WH. So now on the left here, I have B minus 2WH, but I still have a problem. I have two terms that have the L in it that I want to isolate, and I can't isolate it when it's in two terms. So this is where you need to really remember a lot of your algebra skills. In A1, you learned something called factoring. You can factor a term out, or factor out if it's in both terms. And this L is in this term and it's in this term. So we can factor it out and put it out in front. So if I want to take the L out, divide it out, 2LH divided by L just leaves me with 2H, keeping your plus sign. And then 2LW divided by L is 2W. Another way I've seen students talk about this is it's like backwards distribution. Instead of multiplying both of these by L, you're dividing it out. And if you want to check your accuracy, if you did distribute this L, you should get right back to where you started from. And you may wonder, why did we do that? Well, by pulling the L out, factoring it out, it isolated it. Now this L is alone. It gave me one step closer to my goal. Remember, this can be treated just like a number, just like this was L times 12. If it were L times 12, we'd divide both sides by 12. Well, treat this 2H plus 2W just like you would if it were a 12, and divide both sides by that mess. Because when you divide it here, it cancels. So then this is your answer. L is B minus 2WH all over 2H plus 2W. Like I said, not a pretty answer, but it is solved for the letter we wanted. All right, so have fun with page 1.4 in your summer packet.